Most people who experience their partner pulling away during the twin flame journey assume they are being rejected, abandoned, or punished by fate. In reality, they are often being prepared to receive what they have always desired in the most intense way possible. Carl Jung, through his studies of the archetypes that govern deep soul bonds, observed that there is a specific phase in the spiritual path when the divine masculine, by masculine I do not mean the physical man, but rather an active energy that drives evolution, applies a test so subtle, so painful, and so necessary that only a small number are strong enough to pass it and experience the conscious union that others spend a lifetime searching for. Today, you will understand that when your twin flame withdraws, creates distance, or seems to push your emotional limits in the most painful way, it is not always rejection. At the right moment, it can actually be approval. And if you are watching this video now, if your soul has been guided here at this exact stage of your journey, it may be because it is time for you to realize that what appears to be abandonment is actually confirmation. Your twin flame is not trying to remove you from their life. They are observing whether you are truly the one they need before fully surrendering their soul into your hands. That is why you should watch until the end. Because missing this insight could cause you to keep misreading what might actually be the greatest act of love someone can show. And before we begin, if you recognize your own story in what I am about to explain, write in the comments, "I hold my energy," so I know this message reached exactly where it was meant to. If you feel ready to explore the deepest truth about your twin flame connection, consider supporting this work by clicking the thanks button below. Your support allows me to continue sharing exclusive content inspired by Carl Jung's wisdom, helping souls like yours navigate the deepest mysteries of human connection. First, you need to understand why the divine masculine applies this test and why it is as necessary as it is painful for the one going through it. Carl Jung spent years examining the energetic dynamics between the divine masculine and feminine, not only in romantic relationships, but as archetypal forces that guide all forms of creation and manifestation in the universe. According to him, for the divine masculine to truly surrender and consciously commit to the divine feminine, he must first be absolutely certain that she will not lose herself in him, that she will not emotionally abandon herself just to keep him, and that she will not sacrifice her own essence to maintain the bond. But why is this so important? Because the divine masculine knows, even on an unconscious level, that if a woman abandons herself to stay with him, she will eventually resent that loss and project onto him the blame for her disconnection from her own identity. He understands that relationships built on the feminine's self-abandonment cannot last in the long term because they create codependent patterns that slowly destroy the genuine love between them. Jung noted that the divine masculine serves a clear psychological role. He acts as the guardian of the connection's integrity. His energetic responsibility is to ensure that the union, when it happens, is formed by two whole individuals who consciously choose to share their completeness, not by two incomplete halves trying to fill each other's emptiness. To fulfill this responsibility, he must test whether the feminine can preserve her personal sovereignty, even within the overwhelming intensity of twin flame recognition. During his clinical observations, Jung recorded cases where men who believed they had met their twin flames began to display seemingly contradictory and self-sabotaging behaviors precisely when the bond deepened. They would disrupt important meetings, create unnecessary conflicts, or withdraw at moments of greatest intimacy. At first, Jung interpreted these patterns as fear of commitment or emotional immaturity. Over time, however, he realized something much deeper was occurring. These men were unconsciously testing whether the women could maintain their personal integrity under emotional pressure. They needed to see if the women could sustain self-love even when facing apparent rejection, maintain dignity even when they felt like begging for attention, and remain true to themselves even when everything seemed to be collapsing. This process is rarely conscious or calculated. Most of the time, the masculine himself does not logically understand why he behaves in contradictory ways. He feels the deep bond, recognizes her soul, and may even sense she is special in ways he cannot explain. Yet something inside him, an ancestral wisdom that goes beyond his mental awareness, pushes him to create situations where she must choose between chasing him or staying centered within herself. It is as if an internal program, encoded in the spiritual DNA of the divine masculine, automatically activates testing mechanisms when he recognizes a twin flame connection. This program is neither cruel nor meaningless. It functions as a protection system, developed over generations, to ensure that only relationships grounded in emotional and spiritual maturity are fully formed. This is where most women fail the test. They interpret his distance as rejection, as proof they must try harder to win him, or as a sign that they were not interesting, beautiful, or special enough to hold his attention. As a result, they begin chasing, trying to convince him through words or actions that only reinforce his unconscious fear, that she cannot sustain her own energy, that she might lose herself if he comes too close, and that the burden of her happiness would eventually fall on him. Jung emphasized that this pattern is not cruel or random. It is an ancient protective mechanism designed to ensure that only mature and conscious connections truly manifest. When two twin flames unite consciously, they access a powerful level of co-creation that can become unstable if it is not rooted in mutual integrity and personal sovereignty. The divine masculine senses this instinctively. That is why he needs certainty that she can be happy, fulfilled, and whole on her own. He must know that if he leaves for work, personal growth, or any other reason, she will continue to thrive instead of losing herself in his absence. He must trust that she loves him for who he is, not for the security, completeness, or validation he might provide. During this testing phase, the divine masculine carefully observes how she reacts to different forms of emotional pressure. He may cancel plans at the last moment to see whether she responds with calm understanding or emotional drama. He may delay replying to messages to observe whether she sends anxious texts or maintains her composure. He might mention other women to see if she shows confidence or becomes possessive and insecure. Each scenario becomes a chance for her to demonstrate emotional maturity, the ability to love without control, and the strength to trust without needing to dominate. Every reaction she gives is unconsciously evaluated, forming evidence about her readiness as a life partner. When she fails this test, when her behavior shows that she needs him to feel complete, something unfortunate occurs. Not because he stops loving her, or because the connection loses its authenticity, but because he understands, at a very deep level, that if he fully commits under these conditions, both of them would end up in a relationship based on dependency rather than conscious choice, on emotional need instead of mature love. That is why he often withdraws even more, not to cause pain, but to offer another chance, to create yet another moment where she must choose between chasing him or remaining grounded in her own energy. And if she continues to misread each withdrawal as a signal to try harder to win him, he may eventually conclude that she is not yet prepared for the kind of love he is capable of offering. Jung observed that many men remain in this pattern with the same woman for years, hoping she will eventually understand what is really happening and adjust her reactions. They may even try to explain verbally, saying things like, "I need space," or "I'm not ready for something serious." But in truth, what they are expressing is, "I need to know if you can love me without losing yourself, if you can be happy without depending on me, if you can maintain your own energy while I process my fears about intimacy." However, a small percentage of women intuitively understand this energetic dynamic. They recognize that the more he pulls away, the more they must move closer to themselves. They perceive that each test is actually an opportunity to demonstrate emotional and spiritual maturity. They understand that real love is not achieved through pursuit, but attracted through self-possession and personal sovereignty. These women do something that genuinely surprises the divine masculine. They stop chasing, not as a tactic or manipulation, but through a sincere realization that their happiness and fulfillment cannot rely on any external factor, no matter how special the connection may be. They turn their focus toward their own lives, their interests, and their personal growth. They choose themselves as the main source of love and fulfillment. When this shift occurs, when the divine feminine proves through her actions that she can sustain her own energy regardless of his behavior, something remarkable changes in the energetic field between them. The divine masculine finally receives the confirmation he was unconsciously seeking. She truly is who he believed she was. She can love without losing herself, connect without abandoning herself, and recognize a twin flame without becoming emotionally dependent on that soul. Jung observed that when this dynamic resolves in a healthy way, when the woman passes the test by choosing her sovereignty instead of chasing masculine validation, a complete role reversal often takes place. The man who was previously withdrawing begins to approach. The one who seemed uninterested starts showing consistent attention. The one who created distance now begins to seek closeness. This reversal does not happen because she used an effective psychological strategy. It occurs because she has become authentically attractive in a way that goes far beyond superficial appeal. She becomes magnetic because she radiates integrity, wholeness, and genuine self-love. These qualities are deeply compelling to a mature divine masculine. It is as if she has activated an inner light that was previously dim, a light that does not depend on external approval to shine, that does not require validation to exist, and that does not fade when emotional storms arise. This inner light draws the divine masculine the way a moth is drawn to a flame, or a navigator is guided by a lighthouse in darkness. So, how can you distinguish whether you are being tested rather than rejected? There are specific signs that reveal when his withdrawal is actually a hidden form of love declaration. The first sign is that his distancing is not permanent. He pulls away, but then returns. He creates space, but later breaks that distance with a message, a call, or a look that shows you still hold an important place in his thoughts. If it were genuine rejection, the withdrawal would be final and consistent. But if it is a test, he will create cycles of distance and closeness to observe how you respond to each shift. Jung understood that these cycles are not cruel mind games, but unconscious patterns that arise when the masculine is trying to evaluate the feminine's emotional maturity. Each time he withdraws and then comes back, he is offering another opportunity for her to demonstrate that she can remain centered regardless of his fluctuations. During these cycles, many women become confused because they feel the depth of the connection when they are together, yet later experience a coldness or distance that seems illogical. They begin to question whether they imagined the bond, whether they misread the signals, or whether there is truly something meaningful between them. But this confusion itself is part of the test. The divine masculine needs to see whether she will panic and start chasing him for external reassurance, or whether she will trust her own intuition and maintain inner stability regardless of his changing behavior. If she can remain grounded and uphold her inner truth, even when he creates external uncertainty, she demonstrates the inner strength he is seeking. The second sign is that when you are together, the connection feels undeniable and profound. Yet when you separate, he appears to become a different person. This occurs because in your presence, he directly experiences the truth of the connection and cannot deny what exists between you. But once he creates distance, his rational mind begins to question, analyze, and build resistance based on unconscious fears about intimacy and commitment. This oscillation between deep closeness and apparent coldness is one of the clearest indicators that you are dealing with someone who recognizes the significance of the bond, but is still internally processing whether he is ready for the responsibility that comes with it. Jung noted that many men, especially those with strong intellectual or professional development, struggle to integrate experiences that go beyond rational logic. When they feel a connection they cannot mentally explain, they often alternate between surrendering to the experience and trying to control it through analysis or distancing. During moments of closeness, he may be fully present and attentive, clearly showing that he acknowledges something unique in the bond. He may even say he has never felt anything similar, that you are different from anyone he has known, and that there is something about you he cannot forget. He might open up emotionally in ways that surprise even him, sharing vulnerabilities he usually keeps hidden. But when he withdraws to process the experience, he may act as if none of that occurred, as if the intensity you shared was irrelevant or imagined. He might verbally deny feeling anything special, minimize the importance of intimate moments, or behave as if you were just another person in his life. This contradiction does not mean he is lying or consciously manipulating the situation. It indicates an internal conflict between what he feels and what he thinks he should feel, between what his soul recognizes and what his mind can logically understand. This inner struggle then appears externally as seemingly inconsistent behavior. The third sign is that he shows sincere interest in your life, your goals, and your personal development, even while maintaining romantic distance. This suggests that his interest goes beyond temporary attraction. He is observing who you are as a complete individual, how you handle challenges, how you relate to yourself, and how you interact with the world around you. Jung recognized that when the divine masculine evaluates a potential life partner, he pays less attention to how she behaves with him and more attention to how she behaves with herself. He wants to know if she has the inner resources to face life's inevitable difficulties, if she can preserve her joy and vitality even when things do not unfold as expected, and if she has a balanced relationship with her own femininity and personal power. He may ask about your dreams and ambitions, show genuine curiosity about your growth, or even offer support and guidance for challenges you are experiencing. This indicates that he sees you as a whole and multifaceted person, not merely as a romantic possibility. He is assessing whether you would be compatible not only in intimacy, but also as life partners who can support each other's growth and fulfillment. The fourth sign is that he appears genuinely concerned about how his behavior affects you, yet still continues to create situations that test your emotional stability. This seeming contradiction reveals that he cares about your well-being, but also needs to know whether you possess enough inner strength to be with someone who will continually challenge you to grow. You may notice that he carefully observes your reactions and pays attention to how you manage the uncertainty, frustration, or confusion he creates. If you respond with desperation, excessive neediness, or dramatic reactions, he may distance himself further. But if you maintain dignity, composure, and the ability to remain happy independently of his actions, he may begin to show greater consistency and interest. A mature divine masculine does not want a partner who collapses at the first difficulty or who resents him whenever he needs to focus on other areas of life beyond the relationship. He seeks someone resilient, adaptable, and capable of supporting his dreams, even when it temporarily means receiving less attention. The fifth and most important sign is that, at a deep intuitive level, you feel there is something real and meaningful between you, even when external circumstances suggest otherwise. This persistent inner sense of connection, despite changing situations, often acts as an internal guidance system, encouraging you to preserve your own energy and allow the situation to unfold naturally. Jung placed great trust in the wisdom of intuition, especially feminine intuition, which he considered one of the most refined forms of perception available to human beings. If you continue to feel that there is something meaningful between you, even when his behavior seems confusing or distant, your soul may be perceiving information that your rational mind cannot fully process. This intuition can appear in many forms. You might experience recurring dreams about him, feel his presence energetically even when you are physically apart, or receive sudden insights about what he may be feeling or thinking. You may also notice synchronicities connected to your dynamic, such as hearing a song at the exact moment you think of him, or unexpectedly crossing paths in places where you would not normally meet. But here is the most important point. Even if you recognize all these signs, even if you understand that you may be facing a test rather than rejection, the appropriate response remains the same. Choose yourself. Not as a tactic to pass the test, but as a sincere act of self-love and self-respect. Because the reality is that even if he is testing you, even if at a deep level he knows he wants to be with you, this does not change the fact that your happiness and fulfillment cannot depend on his decisions. You must be able to live a complete and satisfying life, regardless of whether he chooses to come closer or definitively move away. Jung observed that individuation, the process of becoming a whole and integrated individual, is always a requirement for healthy and lasting relationships. In the context of twin flames, where the intensity of the bond can easily lead to an unhealthy merging of identities, this individuation becomes even more essential. Choosing yourself is not a one-time action, but a daily practice that demands awareness and discipline. It means waking up each morning and deciding to invest your energy first in your own well-being, personal growth, and fulfillment before focusing on what he might be doing or feeling. It means creating routines that nourish your soul, dedicating time to activities that genuinely bring you joy, and building relationships that truly support and value you. When you consistently choose yourself, when you direct your energy toward your own development, happiness, and sense of purpose, several changes occur at once. First, you stop emitting an energy of lack and need that naturally pushes away a mature masculine presence. Second, you begin to radiate a sense of abundance and fulfillment that is magnetically attractive. Third, you develop the inner stability required to sustain a deep connection without losing your sense of self. And fourth, perhaps most importantly, you place yourself in a position where you can consciously decide who you want to share your life with, rather than accepting minimal attention from someone you have idealized as your only source of happiness. If you are experiencing this cycle of approach and withdrawal, with someone you recognize as a significant connection. To remember that the most important test is not winning his love. It is discovering whether you can maintain self-love regardless of his behavior. Jung might describe this as love's true alchemy, the transformation of emotional dependence into the gold of inner self-sufficiency. When this transformation is complete, you naturally attract individuals who operate at the same level of maturity and awareness. If you feel that these words speak directly to your soul about the unique experience you are living, write in the comments, "I hold my energy." This will confirm that the message reached where it was meant to, and that you understand not all tests are punishments. Some are preparation for something exceptional. And if you are ready to fully transform this dynamic that may have consumed your thoughts for months or even years, there is something that can significantly accelerate your healing and growth process. I have created 2 exclusive resources based on Carl Jung's deepest teachings about individuation and conscious relationships. The first is 21 Days of Transformation with Carl Jung, a practical guide designed to lead you through the most powerful techniques Jung developed to help you sustain your own energy and discover personal sovereignty. Over 21 days, you will work with specific exercises to integrate your shadow, communicate with your unconscious, and most importantly, establish yourself in your own energetic fullness, even when circumstances seem to challenge your limits. The second resource is the Soul Survival Manual, created because I understand that when you are being intensely tested by the divine masculine, some days simply feel difficult to endure. This manual offers practical strategies grounded in depth psychology to help you navigate the most challenging phases of the journey. These tools are meant for moments when the urge to break and chase him becomes overwhelming, when you doubt your ability to sustain your own energy, and when you need clear reminders of who you truly are beyond this test. The link is available in the first pinned comment of this video. Be prepared. The divine masculine is not testing you because he doubts your worth, but because he recognizes your significance. And when you pass this test, when you show that you can sustain your own energy independently of external actions, you will realize that true love is not something to be conquered, but something that is naturally magnetized through inner fullness and authentic self-expression. Remember, only a small number of souls manage to recognize this test for what it truly is. You have come this far because your consciousness is already ready for this understanding. Thank you for having the courage to look beyond appearances and discover the deeper truth about what it means to be tested by the universe. See you in the next video.